Greetings, everyone, and welcome back to the Dracovin Empire. Are you ready to dive into the world of darkness once more? I hope you are, because today we are going to be learning about yet another tribe from Werewolf The Apocalypse, one that's technically the offshoot of another, the Hakken, an offshoot of the Shadowlords. But if you're ready to learn about with me, to visit this world, I can open up a gateway through the gauntlet, through the realms of spirits and shadows, through time and space, to a different world than our own. One where the supernatural hides beneath the surface, the world of darkness. I am your host and guide through that gateway, hence Dracovin. Please do give me a little tip before we go, like subscribing the bell, and let me know your experience and what you think of Hakken. Alright, I've opened the gateway. I will now lead us there. Grab my hand. We go, once more, to the world of darkness. Right. We are in Japan now, for this is where the Hakken are at their strongest, but they are found outside of it. Now, if I was to dive into Hakken and want to play one, more than just, well, understand them, there are, of course, 3 books I would recommend. All. First off is Hengeyoke, Shapeshifters of the East. That is the main book that I use for a bit of extra information beyond some basics that are on the wiki site. Honestly speaking, the wiki site's kind of a little bit of a summary of what's in the book, so if you want more and stats for it, that one's my big one. But Way of the Beast Courts is also not a bad book. Yes, it is from Mind's Eye Theater, the LARP version of it, but it does provide some basic information on, and then Player's Guide to Changing Breed does provide a little bit of extra there. I'm not including the Shadowlords tribe book, because it does mention some things, because they are sort of an offshoot of Shadowlords, but I kind of want to consider them their own right in a lot of ways. Speaking with their own respect and books that really dive into them personally, feels like this. So, again, we are using the Shadowlord symbol here because it's the closest one to one they have. And if you would see the book I mentioned, the main one, the Hengeyoke Shapeshifters of the East, they show this symbol with some other one. So it is one of their symbols because they are distant relatives of Shadowlords. They are Japanese in depth. They're native to Japan, and they've been isolated from the rest of the world basically because of things that happened during the Edo period and beyond. The Japanese isolationism, well, did the same to them. Now, they aren't without it, but they have lost pretty much their entire lupus pool. Most wolves on the island of Japan have been killed off during this period. And today, they're mostly Hakken. This imbalance has brought a lot of change in their cultures and makes them basically very different from your classic Garu in a lot of their practices. They are their own unique culture in a lot of them. They still are Garrets, they still are werewolves, but they've become something new, different. We can kind of talk about that a little bit here. So, the Hakken claim Japan as their home. And there is a minority that do make up homes in other places around the Pacific. There's some in China, South Korea, the west coast of the US, Canada. Those that would think that they are just an Asian branch of the Shadowlords don't really know anything about them. Their differences basically pale in comparison to, or their similarities pale in comparison to their differences. That's the way you should say it. Sorry, saying it the opposite. Your average Hakken considers the Garu nation to be murderous barbarians who've spurred their place in the Emerald Mother's great plan and refuse to work with the other changing breeds. Basically, they're busting on them for not being a great servant of Gaia, aka the Emerald Mother, and basically for, hey, the entire war of rage, slaughter off all the other changing breeds, declare war on them, that kind of crap. So, yeah, they definitely have a different appearance, a different look on things. The Hakken are the Hengeyoke's foremost warriors and protectors, the changing breeds of the East. They act as the first line of fights against the dreaded Bakemono. And along with Kitsune and Tengu, they get along very well. Khan, rivals, and Nizumi are dishonorable and unclean, but can be useful. In the midst of their long war between both the Hangayoki courts and between mortals and the changing breeds, the werewolves in Japan have sought to end both types of wars by strengthening their ties with mortal society. Basically, they had their battles with the Hangayoki courts, they had their battles with mortals, other changing breeds. They had these. And they've been attempting to basically get to the point where the East is now, where the changing breeds of the East, the Hangayoki, the Beast Courts, are relatively united. There's still rivalries, there's still problems between them, but they have a common goal and peace, relatively speaking. And where this, for them, comes in, for the Hakken, well, they became samurai. The code, the ethics, combined with some of the codes, ethics, and honor that were deep within werewolf society, matched pretty well for them. So, it only took a few generations for their descendants to be more connected with the culture and customs of Japan, then to Garu traditions. This connection to the Japanese culture increased the local wolf population decline. It was harder and harder to brocade wolfkin to have children with. The humans have believed that wolves died out in Japan in 1905, but the Hakken do have a small number of wolf kinfolk in remote protected areas, basically hiding them from humans. So, their wolfkin aren't extinct, they're just so few in numbers that it ends up being rare for lupus Hakken. Not outside the normal possibility, but rare in comparison to Hakken. Now I have to talk about how they organize in groups. These secret packs of Japanese wolf keep their population from declining, but again, most are human, and most humans, Hakken, lead very human lives. They follow the warrior's code, clearly derived from the samurai code of Bushido, and adapt it through werewolf's thoughts and deeds. So it's this kind of hybrid of Bushido and werewolf code. The Hakken organize themselves into clan bases, on family lineages. They battle, they adorn themselves with the clan's crest. The few lupus Hakken are the only members that actually retain traditional pack structures when it comes to Garu. Without the pressure of a family expected to hold ancient traditions, and to the kinfolk nonsensical ones, they basically are a little free to be more spontaneous. So lupus Hakken are the ones that are more likely to join the sentai of beast courts, more than their Hannen cousins. And within their own clans and packs, Hakken settle dispute in single combat. Swords, one-on-one competitions, which can actually be something like poetry, storytelling contests even, so it doesn't have to be just martial contests within competition. And despite all the differences with other werewolves, basically, in a few ways, Hakken show clear connections to other Garu. The clans and packs hold regular moots in their cairns, which closely resemble the moots of Garu elsewhere in the world. So, again, as much as they have digressed from traditional werewolf culture, they still are werewolves. They still are connected to the old culture in a lot of ways. So, yeah. Alright. Let's talk about a little about their code and what they have as a code. So, the way of their warrior has some tenets to it. Basically, there are whole Hakken that believe human warriors learn these codes from werewolves. Others believe that the human and Garu codes develop simultaneously. Whatever truth is, the Hakken follow these tenets closely. And they adopt these customs to successfully interact with humans during this time now, and a lot of the tenets' way of life. Again, lupus Hakken don't take the code as seriously, less likely to take it seriously. They have their own way of doing things. So benevolence and unselfishness. Their two swords, the katana and wakizashi, symbol of authority and rank. So using the sword is a sign of mercy among fellow werewolves. Drawing a weapon is a sign that they are intended to draw blood. So, straightforwardness. It's a little bit of a tricky concept that can leave people scratching their heads. The notion of appearing to be straightforward. Wisdom. This mirrors the wisdom, the symbol of wisdom, the tenet that begins the knowledge itself. Know your strengths and limitations, and understand them. Together with benevolence, straightforwardness, and wisdom, complete the Shintoku, the divine virtues. Loyalty. Allegiances and consistency to one's sworn daimyo are extremely important in Hakken. The maintenance of quality of all things. There's appearance, politeness, at social gatherings, perfection. Vengeance, art, war, love. No matter the task, you seek to do it to its best ability. Eternal obedience. You know your lord will not make demands of you that are unjust, or not in accordance with the wishes of the Emerald Mother, so that Hakken, the daimyo, is the chosen, imbued by Gaia, all the wisdom necessary to uphold responsibility. So, yes. Obedience. Acceptance of punishment for failure. You don't offer excuses for mistakes, you take full responsibility for your deeds. That means you might accept some punishment for your actions. Acceptance of a just fate for injustices done to others. Karma. A Hakken makes someone else suffer unfairly. If a Hakken makes someone else suffer unfairly, the offender knows he'll get his reward. So on the other hand, if someone's justice is maybe necessary due to the commands of the daimyo. So again, it's sort of like you get your comeuppance for it. You lead that to its things. Alright. But there's some basics of the Hakken. Again, they are technically an offshoot of the Shadowlords, but because they have certainly developed their own culture, have their own way of doing things very different, they can really be considered their own group at this point in time. They are the werewolves of the East, of Asia. And yes, they're deeply connected to Japan, the culture of Japan, and the old culture of Japan, the way of the samurai, the Shida. But it's also, you can find them in other places. These deeper connections with the rest of the beast courts, and the getting together of all the different Hengeyoke, has meant that they have spread to other places. To South Korea, China, of course, following those that would head towards the US and western coast. All around the Pacific, you can find Hakken. Certainly speaking not to the numbers that you would in Japan, where their true court is in a lot of ways, where their clans rule their people. It still means that there are connections out there. And yeah, it is interesting to say that the idea that they have a version of a extinct wolf that is only in their command that they've managed to maintain in secret is kind of a neat thing. It does go to show you actions that mean more for Werewolf, Garrett, for Children of Gaia, for the servants of Gaia. They've done something where anywhere else they're extinct, but they have kept them strong in small places and keep this alive. It's one of those things is, we haven't seen anything for Hakken in 5e. I don't know if we will. Because there's a lot of things in 5e that I just don't know. But going over them, where we're not one of the main tribes, where we don't have a lot of information about it, there is still this interesting ideas to the Hakken. The actions they've done. In a lot of ways, being better than your average Garrett. But I think I will leave this there and say, thank you all for joining. This was definitely a fun one to dive into. I did want to talk about them on their own. I think I mentioned the Shadowlords them a little bit. But because they are really, in a lot of ways, when you look at them, their own group, you really have to treat them that way. Yeah, it's cousins of the Shadowlords. They are technically related, descended from them. But there's this just their own way of doing things and own culture that has developed in such a strong area that make them their own unique people and make them very interesting. And I hope you enjoyed learning about them with me. Remember to check out all the rest of my other stuff, whether it's over on Twitch or YouTube. I have schedules up online. I'm making updates on our schedules. Twitch is more, movie tabletop recordings. I do some gaming too, variety with friends and otherwise. Live plays of TTRPGs if you want to join me. I currently have Fall that happens 12 Wednesdays at 8. Discussing Tabletop, where I talk about news of the week, give discussion topics, and our kind of podcasty thing. Eventually I might make it a real podcast over on Saturdays at 6. And all the tabletop stuff goes up on YouTube. Gaming stuff I might put up on channels. I do social media. Discord, Blue Sky, Twitter Slashes. Check those out below. And make sure again, let me know what you think about all this. Your opinions on the Hakken. Would they be able to do something with the way they've done a lot of stuff in 5th edition for Hakken in 5th edition? I feel like they can't because they have taken such heavy steps away from bloodline-related stuff. And the Hakken are very much so bloodline-related in lines. So there is definitely a question for this. And especially though, just let me know what you think about them if you ever want to play with them. Anyway, I'm gonna get going. Maybe do some more recordings. Until the next time, I bid all of you out there a deep and wonderful farewell.